Hello everyone and welcome to the 5-Minute German A1 exam preparation series. In today's video, we will take a look at the Sprechen part, especially part 2 and part 3, in which you have to make questions and give answers, as well as make requests and react to them. I will also give you sample sentences which you can use in any situation and some helpful tips which will help you in the exam. I have already made a video on the first part of the Sprechen exam, which is introducing yourself. I will link it in the description below. You can go and check it out. So now let's not waste any time and let's get started. So as you know that the Goethe German A1 exam has 4 parts. These are Hören, which is listening, Lesen, which is reading, Schreiben, which is writing, and Sprechen, which is speaking. The Sprechen or speaking part usually happens at the end of the exam, and this has 3 parts. The first part is to introduce yourself, and this is of 3 marks. I have already made a complete video on how you can introduce yourself in the German A1 exam. I will link this video in the description below and you can take a look at it. The second part is to ask questions and give answers. This part is of 6 marks, and in this part you can make questions using Wer-Fragen or Ja-Nein-Fragen. Then the third part is to make requests and react to other people's requests. This is also of 6 marks. And in this part, you will use the imperative to make requests or commands or give orders. So in this video, we will take a look at part 2 and 3, which is how you can ask questions and give answers, and how you can make requests and react to them. And I will also give you a lot of helpful tips on how you can make these questions or how you can make these requests so that you don't have any problem in the exam. So let's first take a look at the part 2, which is to ask questions and give answers. So this is done in a group. So you will be in a group with other people who are also giving an exam, and you will have to ask questions to the other person, and then he or she will reply to your questions. And in the same way, they will ask you questions and you will have to give them answers. And how this takes place is that you will have an examiner, and this examiner will give you a card like this one over here. And on this card, you will have a thema written at the top, which in this case is Sport, and you will have a word, which over here is Abend. And you will have to make a question related to the thema. So thema means topic. So suppose that you get this card with the thema Sport and the word Abend. So you can make a question with this as, Machen Sie Sport am Abend? Do you do sport in the evening? And since this is a Ja-Nein-Frage, so the other person can answer it by saying Ja. However, in the exam, this is not the best answer that you can give. Rather, you should give complete sentences in the answer. For example, a better answer to this question would be Ja, ich mache Sport am Abend. Yes, I do sport in the evening. Or an even better answer can be Ja, ich spiele abends Fußball. Yes, I play football in the evenings. So once you have asked your question and the other person has answered, the examiner will give the other person a similar card with the same thema. However, there will be a different word on it. As you see that in this case it is schwimmen. So he or she will ask the question such as Schwimmen Sie gern? Do you like to swim? Then you can answer it by saying Ja, ich schwimme gern. Yes, I like to swim. Then the examiner will give another card with a different thema. For example, now you have the thema einkaufen, which means grocery shopping, and you have the word Apfel, which means apple. So you can make the question, Wie viel kostet der Apfel? How much does the apple cost? And the other person can answer it by saying, Der Apfel kostet 1 Euro. The apple costs 1 euro. Then the other person will receive a card with the same thema, but a different word on it. For example, he or she receives the word Kasse, which means counter or cash register. So he can ask the question, Wo ist die Kasse? Where is the counter? And you can answer it by saying, Die Kasse ist am Eingang. The counter is at the entrance. So after you have asked 2 questions and given 2 answers, this part will end. However, for your practice, we will do another round. So suppose you get the card with the thema Essen und Trinken and the word Sonntag. So the topic is eating and drinking and the word is Sunday. So you can ask the question, Was essen Sie am Sonntag? What do you eat on Sunday? And the other person can answer, Ich esse Pizza am Sonntag. I eat pizza on Sunday. Now the other person receives a card with the word Brot on it. Then he or she can ask, Essen Sie gern Brot? Do you like to eat bread? And you can say, Ja, ich esse gern Brot. Yes, I like to eat bread. So this is how this section will look like, that each one of you will receive a card and then you will have to ask a question to the other person and also answer the questions from the other person. Now let me give you some helpful tips which will be useful for you in the exam. So the first tip is that know the W-Fragen. Revise them before going into the exam because you will use them in this section. So in A1 we have 8 W-Fragen in total. These are was, which means what, wo, which means where, woher, which means from where, wohin, which means where to, wie, which means how, and there are different variants of wie. For example, wie viel, how much, wie oft, how often, wie viele, how many. Then you have where, which means who, wann, which means when, and welch, which means which, and it has different endings depending on the noun which comes after it. For example, welcher, welche, and welches. So you should know all the W-Fragen and their meanings because depending on the word and the thema that you get, you can use one of these W-Fragen to make a question. Now let me give you some questions for different situations so that if you have any of these situations or any of these topics, then you can use these questions and just put in the word that you have on the card. So let's take a look at questions for Freizeit activity, which is free time activity, or Sport. So suppose that you get the card with the thema Freizeit and the word Sport on it. Then you can use the question Machen Sie gern, then give the activity over here. In this case, Sport is the activity. So you can say Machen Sie gern Sport. So this is how you can make the question. Now if you get another word, for example Musik, which means music, then you can also use the same question. So you can say Machen Sie gern Musik. So you see how this question can be used with different words. Now if you also want to tell about the time, then you can say Machen Sie Sport am, and then give the time. For example, am Sonntag or am Wochenende, or machen Sie Musik am Sonntag or am Wochenende. And these questions work with other topics as well. For example, if you get the thema Sport and get the word yoga, then you can say machen Sie Yoga am Wochenende or Samstag or any other time. However, one important point over here is that these questions are suitable for words which are nouns. And how do you know that these words are nouns? Because the first character of each of these words is capital. So that's how you know that these are nouns. Some other questions that you can use are Wo machen Sie the activity? For example, Wo machen Sie Sport or Wo machen Sie Musik? And if you want to ask when you do this activity, then you can use the question Wann machen Sie Sport? Or wann machen Sie Yoga, and so on. Now if you get some other word where you cannot use machen, such as Fußball, which is football, then you will use Spielen Sie gern Fußball? So you will replace machen with spielen in this case. And the same will happen for the rest of the questions, such as Spielen Sie Fußball am Sonntag, or Wo spielen Sie Fußball, or wann spielen Sie Fußball? So you see how the same pattern of questions can be used with different words and topics. Now if the Freizeit activity or Sport is not a noun, rather it is a verb, such as schwimmen or joggen, which means jogging, then what will you do? But first, how do you know that these are verbs? Because the first character of both of them is small. So from this you can know that this is a verb. So in this case you can use the question where you start with the activity, for example schwimmen, and then add Sie gern. So, schwimmen Sie gern or joggen Sie gern. And this means, do you like to swim or do you like to jog? Or if you want to add the time, then you can say, schwimmen Sie gern am Sonntag or am Wochenende? So you will add the time at the end. And if you want to ask where you do this activity, then you can say, wo joggen Sie or wo schwimmen Sie? Or you can also use the question, wann schwimmen Sie am Samstag or am Wochenende? So you can use these questions whenever the Freizeit activity or Sport is a verb, and just replace activity with whatever word you get on the card. Now if the topic is related to Essen und Trinken, which means eating and drinking, and you get the card with something which you can eat written on it, for example pizza, then you can use the question essen Sie gern, and then add the thing which is written on the card. So in this case, pizza. So I will say, essen Sie gern Pizza? Do you happily eat pizza? And if it is something that you can drink, for example, Kaffee, which means coffee, then you can use the question, trinken Sie gern Kaffee? Do you like to drink coffee? Another question that you can use is, wann essen Sie Pizza or wann trinken Sie Kaffee? And if you get a word related to time on the card, such as Wochenende, then you can use the question, was essen or trinken Sie am Wochenende? If it was Sonntag, then I would have said, was essen or trinken Sie am Sonntag? So you just replace the time with whatever is written on your card. Now if you have a Thema related to einkaufen, which means to buy something, and you get the card with the word Buch written on it, which means book, then in this case you can use the question, wie viel kostet, and then add the thing which is written on the card. For example, in this case it will be das Buch. So you will say, wie viel kostet das Buch? Or if the word was laptop, then you will say, wie viel kostet their laptop? So you see how I can replace the thing in this question and the rest of the question remains the same. Or you can also make the question, wo kann ich, then add the thing and then kaufen. But one important thing in this question is that the thing will be accusative. So you will say, wo kann ich den Laptop kaufen? Where can I buy the laptop? Now if you have a topic or word related to time, for example, Samstag, then you can use the question, was machen Sie am Samstag? If it was Wochenende, then you would have said, was machen Sie am Wochenende? Or if it is something related to a period of time, for example, Arbeitszeit. So this is an activity which has a fixed duration. So in this case, you can ask the question, von wann bis wann arbeiten Sie? From when till when do you work? Or if you had the topic Wochenende and the word Frühstück, then you can ask the question, wann machen Sie Frühstück am Wochenende? So you see I have added the activity over here and also the time. Now if you have any word or topic related to a person, for example, you get the Thema Familie, which is family, and you get the word Mutter, which is mother. Then you can use the question, wie heißt Ihre Mutter? What is your mother called? And if it was Vater, then you would have used Ihr Vater. So wie heißt Ihr Vater? So you have to be careful that you use the correct ending for Ihr or Ihre. Or you can also ask the question, wie alt ist Ihre Mutter? Or wie alt ist Ihr Vater? Now if the word was for more than one person, for example Freunde, which is a plural meaning friends, and the topic was Schule, which is school, then you can use the question, wie heißen Ihre Freunde in der Schule? What are your friends called in the school? And you can use this for work as well. For example, if you get the word Kollegen, then you can say, wie heißen Ihre Kollegen, which means colleagues, im Büro. So depending on whether the place is masculine or feminine, you will use either in there or im. Now if you have the word or topic related to place, for example, you have the Thema Schule, which is school, and you have the word computer. Then you can ask the question, haben Sie einen Computer in der Schule? Or if you have the word Arbeitsplatz, which is your working place, then you can also ask the question, wo ist Ihr Arbeitsplatz? Where is your workplace? Or if the word was feminine, then you would use Ihre. Now the last important topic is that if you see the word Lieblings, which means favorite, on the card, for example, Lieblingsessen or Lieblingsbuch, which means favorite food or favorite book, then you can make the question as, was ist Ihr Lieblings and then Buch, or was ist Ihr Lieblingsessen? So in this way, you can use these questions for different words, and these will also help you to make questions quickly and you won't have to think a lot in the exam. Now also one tip for answering the questions, and that is reuse the words from the question. So you don't have to be creative. You can simply use words from the question which the other person asks you. For example, if somebody asks you the question, was machen Sie am Wochenende? Then you can simply answer it by saying, ich mache Sport am Wochenende. So you see, you have used almost all the words which were in the question and only added Sport in it. So this was part 2 of the Sprechen section, where you have to ask questions and give answers. Now let's take a look at part 3, where you have to make requests and react to other people's requests or orders. So this part is also done in a group, similar to as you did part 2. The main difference is in this case, you will not get a word written on a card, rather you will get a picture of an object on a card. So for example, as you see over here, you have received a picture of an apple. Then you can make a request to the other person by saying, Geben Sie mir bitte den Apfel. Give me the apple, please. And the other person can answer by saying, Sehr gerne, happily. Then the other person will receive a card with an image of an object on it, and he or she will have to make a question. So for example, he makes a question, Können Sie bitte mir den Schlüssel geben? Can you please give me the key? And you can answer it by saying, Ja, hier bitte. Yes, here. Then you will receive another card with another image on it. So over here you see a no smoking sign. So you can make a request, Rauchen Sie hier nicht? Don't smoke here. And the other person can say, Entschuldigung, ich rauche hier nicht. Sorry, I will not smoke here. Then the other person will receive a second card. In this case, it has an image of a chair. So he can ask the question, Kann ich bitte den Stuhl haben? Can I have the chair, please? And you can answer it by saying, Ja, natürlich. Yes, sure. So each of you will receive 2 cards and you will have to make 2 requests with the images that you see on the card. Now let's take one more example, which is a little different. So suppose you get the card where you have the image of a train station. In this case, you can give the command or make the request, Gehen Sie bitte zum Bahnhof. Go to the train station, please. And the other person can say, Okay, gehe ich. Okay, I am going. So this is how you have to make requests or give orders or commands in this section. If you don't know how to make these commands or make these requests, then you should check out my video on imperative, where I have explained how these commands are formed. I will link it in the description below. Now some helpful tips for this section. So there are some common commands or requests that you can use for things. It doesn't matter which thing it is. You can always use these commands. So suppose you get this image of a radio. Then you can make the request by saying, Geben Sie mir bitte das Radio. So you will replace the thing with whatever you have on the image. This will work with other things as well. For example, if you receive this image of a bag, then you can use the same request to say, Geben Sie mir bitte die Tasche. Give me the bag, please. Another way to make a request can be with modal verbs. So you can say, Können Sie bitte mir das Radio geben? Or Können Sie bitte mir die Tasche geben? Can you please give me the radio or the bag? And as I said, these requests will work with any object. So even if you have, for example, this water bottle over here, so die Flasche, then you can say, Geben Sie mir bitte die Flasche. Or Können Sie bitte mir die Flasche geben? Now if the other person has already used these requests, then you can also use the request, Kann ich bitte die Flasche haben? Or kann ich bitte die Tasche or das Radio haben? One important thing to remember over here is that the thing will always be in accusative when you use these requests. Now if instead of a thing, you see a location on the card, for example, a hospital or ein Krankenhaus, then you can use the sentence, Gehen Sie bitte zum Krankenhaus. We also used this sentence in the example earlier with the Bahnhof or train station, and this can also work with some other things as well. For example, if you get the image of a taxi, then you can say, Gehen Sie bitte zum Taxi. So you see how this request can be used in different situations. And if you have an image of something which is not allowed, for example, you see this image which shows that you are not allowed to swim, then you can use the sentence in the form as you see over here. So you will say, Schwimmen Sie hier nicht. So you will have the activity at the start and then add the rest of the sentence. And as a reply to this, you can say, Entschuldigung, ich schwimme hier nicht. Sorry, I will not swim here. And in most of the other cases, you can use the answers or replies which we saw earlier, which are Ja, natürlich, which means yes, sure, or sehr gerne, ja, gerne, or ja, hier bitte, if somebody asks you to give you something. Or you can also use alles klar, which means Sure. Now some other important tips for the speaking part. The first is that you should know the spelling of your first and last name, because the examiner can ask you questions related to your first or last name after the introduction part. So he or she can ask, was ist Ihr Vorname or Nachname, which is also called Familienname. In my case, I will answer it by saying, mein Nachname ist Ehsan. My last name or family name is Ehsan. Then the examiner can also ask you, buchstabieren Sie Ihren Nachname bitte. Please spell out your last name. So buchstabieren means to spell out. Then I will have to say E-H-S-A-N. So I will have to spell out my last name. So this is very important, that you know the spellings of your first and last name. The second important point is that you should know your telephone number, because the examiner can ask you, was ist Ihre Telefon or Handynummer? What is your telephone number or mobile number? Then you can answer it by saying, meine Handynummer ist 0176 82409. My mobile number is 0176 82409. Another common question which is also asked is, was ist Ihre Muttersprache? What is your mother tongue? In my case, I will answer it by saying, meine Muttersprache ist Urdu. My mother tongue is Urdu. So this is how you can approach section 2 and section 3 of the Sprechen part of the A1 exam. Just take a look at these tips and practice to make questions and requests, so that when you are in the exam, you are confident and you don't forget anything. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions or any feedback, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for your time, and if you have an exam coming up, I wish you all the best. Take care, and we will see each other in the next video.